This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good day. We're coming on the air with breaking news today. 5 Memphis, Tennessee police officers were charged with murder for the death of 29-year-old Tyree Nichols. Nichols died January 10th, just days after a violent confrontation with those officers during a traffic stop. Let's take you to the news conference that has just gotten underway.
All right, we are 2 minutes early. I just want to say thank you for being here today. We know there has been a lot of anticipation surrounding the Tyree Nichols investigation. As you know, on January 7th, there was an encounter between 29-year-old Tyree Nichols and former MPD officers. Immediately upon learning about this, DA Mulroy, Shelby County District Attorney DA Mulroy, enlisted the assistance of the TBI to determine if excessive force had been used. And since then, the DA's office has worked with TBI, and we will continue to do so. Today, you will hear from DA Mulroy along with the director of TBI, David Rouse. And so I want to just make it very clear and ask for your understanding that this is still an ongoing investigation. And so for that reason, there are limits to some of the things and some of the questions that we can answer. So we ask for your understanding as it relates to that. And I will turn it over to DA Mulroy. And did I mention that we will take questions after, but they will, we have a really limited amount of time. So thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm joined today, as Ms. Williams has already said, with the director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, David Roush, as well as Assistant Director Josh Melton. I'm also joined with by other members of my staff, including Ernest Brooks, Ray Lapone, Gerald Scahan, but then also most relevant for today, the trial team in the Tyree Nichols case, including Paul Hagerman and Tanisha Johnson. Another member of the trial team, Melanie Headley, is unavailable. We're here today because of a tragedy that wounds one family deeply, but also hurts us all: the death of Tyree Nichols. We understand and acknowledge the grief that the friends and family of Tyree Nichols are experiencing right now, as well as the great concern throughout all of Memphis and Shelby County about this case. We met several times this week with the family of Tyree Nichols. They described an almost perfect son, a cheerful and happy person who enjoyed skateboarding and sunsets over Shelby Farms Park. We're grateful to the family of Tyree Nichols for their patience as we expedited both the investigation and the consideration of charges in this case, as well as the understanding on the part of the family that premature release of the video could compromise both. And we did work quickly to expedite this investigation because of the extraordinary nature of the case. Compared to the average investigation and prosecution decisions in a case like this, we worked swiftly but also fairly, and most importantly, in a way calculated to ensure that we have a strong case. As you might have heard from Ms. Williams, in this case and any other officer-involved fatality case, I immediately called in the TBI so that we could have an independent investigation. I also assigned to the newly created Justice Review Unit within my office, which works independently and separately both from law enforcement and the rest of my staff, to make a truly objective recommendation about whether criminal charges were appropriate. I want to thank the TBI, the Justice Review Unit, and the trial team for working swiftly but thoroughly under very difficult conditions. Earlier today, the grand jury returned indictments against 5 former Memphis Police Department officers regarding the death of Tyree Nichols. These are the same 5 officers who were previously or recently terminated by the Memphis Police Department. They are currently in custody. They are Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith. The grand jury returned indictments against all 5 with the same charges. And we had previously met with the family of Tyre Nichols to go over what these charges were going to be. And that meeting with the family, I think, went rather well. Here are the charges: second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping resulting in bodily injury, aggravated kidnapping involving the possession of a weapon, official misconduct through unauthorized exercise of power, official misconduct through failure to act when there is a duty imposed by law, and official oppression. While each of the 5 individuals played a different role in the incident in question, the actions of all of them resulted in the death of Tyre Nichols, and they are all responsible. It's important to note, as Ms. Williams said, that this is still an ongoing investigation, and therefore there are limits on what we can say about this case. We ask for everyone's continued patience as we continue to vigorously seek justice in this case. We also know that the public is very concerned about whether they can see the video about this incident and the timing of the release of this, the video of this incident. I have been in regular contact with the city of Memphis, the custodian of that record, and I can tell you that the city will be releasing the video sometime after 6 p.m. Friday, tomorrow, and that the city of Memphis should be making a statement somewhat later on this afternoon regarding the timing of that release. Let me close by saying, both to the family of Tyre Nichols and to the broader community here in Memphis and Shelby County, we all want the same thing. We want justice for Tyre Nichols. It's my hope that if there is any silver lining to be drawn from this very dark cloud, it's that perhaps this incident can open a broader conversation about the need for police reform. The world is watching us, and we need to show the world what lessons we can learn from this tragedy. I'm hopeful that we can show them who I know us to be: a community working towards positive change here in Memphis and Shelby County. With that, let me ask Director Roush to step forward.
Thank you, D.A. Mulroy. Good afternoon. I'm David Roush, Director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. First and foremost, and most importantly, on behalf of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, I want to extend my deepest condolences to the family and friends of Tyre Nichols. My prayer is that God will wrap his comforting arms around you and keep you during this very difficult time. We can't imagine the pain you're experiencing, but let me reaffirm, we are here to pursue truth and justice, realizing that we should not be here. Simply put, this shouldn't have happened. I've been policing for more than 30 years. I've devoted my life to this profession, and I'm grieved. Frankly, I'm shocked. I'm sickened by what I saw and what we've learned through our extensive and thorough investigation. I've seen the video, and as D.A. Mulroy stated, you will too. In a word, it's absolutely appalling. Let me be clear. What happened here does not at all reflect proper policing. This was wrong. This was criminal. The depth and breadth of the charges announced today speaks to the deliberate and thorough investigation that this case has received. And our work is not finished. We continue to pursue every lead. Justice demands it. And our agency exists so that guilt shall not escape, nor innocence suffer. To that end, I want to publicly thank our agents, our forensic scientists, our support staff, and our entire team around the state. They worked diligently to expedite this case. We've worked as hard as we could and as quickly as we could to provide a thorough, independent, unbiased investigative record to allow DA Mulroy and his team to make the most informed decision they could regarding these charges. I also want to thank the Memphis Police Department and the city leaders for their cooperation in this case, which I want to stress is ongoing at this time. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions.
DA Mulroy, I was wondering if Shimon talked about this.
And then let's make sure that one at a time.
One and then two, okay?
And you say the investigation is ongoing. Does that include other officers that were alluded to in C.J. Davis's address last night, and also could it also involve the other EMTs and personnel for the fire department?
Nothing we do today or did today precludes the addition of any further charges regarding any of the people that you mentioned. We're still actively reviewing everything.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir, thank you. Shimon Brokovez from CNN. We have not heard from the police chief generally give a description of what occurred in the initial stop, any kind of a timeline of what exactly occurred on that day. So I'm hoping perhaps you or the director there can explain to us, just give us as much as possible a timeline of the events. He was stopped. Was this a legal stop? Why was he stopped? And then sort of continue to explain perhaps what happened in the moments after that, as much as possible.
Right. I don't want to go into too much detail. And I suspect that all of your answers along those lines will, be forthcoming once you have a chance to view the video for yourself. I know that a lot of this has already been publicly released, but there was an initial traffic stop. We won't comment right now on the presence or absence of legality of the stop, but there was a traffic stop, and there was an initial altercation involving several officers and Mr. Nichols. Pepper spray was deployed. The suspect, or not the suspect, Mr. Nichols, fled on foot. There was another altercation at a nearby location at which the serious injuries were experienced by Mr. Nichols. After some period of time of waiting around afterwards, he was taken away by an ambulance. Beyond that, I don't really think we should go into any further details.
So there was a delay in a call. The police delayed calling an ambulance for.
There was an elapsed period of time, but I believe that if you watch the video, you'll be able to make that judgment for yourself. Erica, do you want to? I'm trying to give everyone a chance to.
But is there a reason the police?
Elise Preston, CBS News. Is it known if Tyree Nichols had previously known these former officers?
We have no information to disclose about that at this time. I don't know why Chief Davis isn't here. Anything else?
DA Mulroy, can you explain, is it just body camera videos, is it dash cam videos, surveillance, what kind of videos?
Well, the actual release will be up to the city of Memphis. My understanding is that it'll be a combination of pole cam video, skycop video, and body cam video.
We'll take just one more question. One more question.
That there will be a review of specialized units within the Memphis Police Department. Two questions. First, were these officers member of the organized crime unit? And second, will your office be involved in that investigation?
Well, so I've read in the newspaper that Chief Davis has announced a review of those specialized units. I think that's a good idea. I commend Chief Davis for doing that. I think Chief Davis is committed to, trying to do whatever she can to learn lessons from this incident. I don't contemplate that our office would be involved in that review. I think that's about as...
members of the organized crime unit?
So I think it's already been reported publicly that the Scorpion unit was involved.
Thank you.
Is that it? That's it. Okay. I'm being told that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been watching a brief news conference from Memphis, Tennessee, where officials are announcing charges, including second-degree murder.
Explaining the law
five.
is, I don't think, at all.
One second.
Say it again. Yeah. So, all right. So, kidnapping is any unlawful confinement of another, which substantially restrains someone's liberty. At a certain point in the sequence of events, it is our view that this if it was a legal detention to begin with, it certainly became illegal at a certain point, and it was an unlawful detention. The aggravated nature of the charge is because if that kidnapping resulted in bodily injury, that's one grounds for saying that it is aggravated kidnapping. If the persons involved in that unlawful restraint of liberty possessed weapons, that is another ground for saying that the kidnapping was aggravated. Do you want me to explain the other charges as well, or? Okay. All right. Official misconduct is when any public official acting part of their official duties intentionally or knowingly acts in a way, exercises authority that is unauthorized by law. All right. So that's an affirmative statement, an affirmative act of official misconduct. At the same time, law enforcement officials who are on duty are also under an affirmative duty to prevent official misconduct and to accurately report information to any medical personnel that show up. And through inaction, when there is a duty imposed by law, that could also be a separate ground for charging official misconduct. Official oppression is a related statute. It's not exactly the same. There's some overlap, but it's not perfect overlap, but it is basically some sort of, by an official, knowing mistreatment in the course of carrying out their official duties. Aggravated assault, I think, is fairly obvious, and under the laws of Tennessee, second-degree murder is a knowing killing.
But they receive bonds. Could you explain why that was it?
Okay, I think that's all the questions he's going to take. The Shelby County District Attorney in Tennessee there describing in detail some of the charges leveled against. He's now fired officers, 5 officers who had worked for the Memphis Police Department, accused of beating Mr. Tyree Nichols, who would later die in a hospital from the injuries he sustained. Let me go right now to NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Danny, a lot to break down here. One of the things that the DA mentioned in his remarks is that the actions of all led to the deaths of Tyree Nichols. So does that mean that maybe they had different interactions, but the fact the presence of all means they all get charged the same way?
Yes, exactly. And there could have been many different kinds of conduct, misconduct, and in failure to act when there's a duty to act. So in other words, you saw this in the Derek Chauvin case. The theory of criminal responsibility is that one person actually did the assaulting and other officers with a duty to step in did nothing. Now, normal citizens don't have a duty to jump in and rescue someone being assaulted. Police officers, especially if one of their own initiated it, would have that duty. So that theory of responsibility is probably going to play out here. It's very likely that some of those officers you're looking at now may not have ever touched the victim, but they may have allowed the beating to go on. And that would still work under a theory of breach of that duty to jump in and help. And of course, with the second-degree murder charge, you have a Class A felony in Tennessee. You're looking at a statutory minimum of 15 years and a maximum of 60 years. So if convicted on that Class A felony of second-degree murder, there is a mandatory minimum of 15 years for a defendant. And that's not including all the other charges, which were summarized slightly just in the last few minutes you saw at the presser.
Yeah, and neither of us, of course, have had the opportunity to view the video, which we're told will be released sometime after 7 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. But in a case like this, will it rest in its entirety on what that video shows?
Yes, and what we learned today that I think is very significant is not only is body cam potentially involved, but so too is pole cam. And I believe Memphis uses a company called Skycam or Skycop, and I think that's the name of the company that actually installs these cameras. And many cities are increasingly installing these pole cameras that monitor on an ongoing basis, or they're sensitive to gunshot sounds and then spring into action. But the reality is nowadays, with dash cam, body cam, and even pole cam, we are all on videotape. And this is, you know, for better or worse, sometimes when it comes to proving a crime against a victim, a violent crime, it's for better because it helps police immeasurably in building their case.
Let me go to Shaquille Brewster, who has been covering this story. Shaquille, the family of Tyre Nichols has seen the video. What are some of the things they've described?
Not only the family, Lester, but even when you listen to the officials, including the police chief, you heard very strong language about this video. The family attorney saying that this is worse than what was seen with the Rodney King video. You heard the police chief in a video last night call the actions appalling. She said it was heinous, reckless, and inhumane, the actions that she saw in that video. You also heard the family yesterday when they came out and talked to reporters and also in other interviews describe who Tyre Nichols was. He's a 29-year-old. He worked for FedEx. Family called him a free spirit. They said he was involved in the local skateboarding community and was a photographer. The loss that they're feeling is severe, and that's what leads to many of the questions of what we heard in that press conference and what led ultimately to his death.
All right, Shaquille Brewster, thank you. That concludes our special report on the murder and other charges filed today against 5 former Memphis, Tennessee police officers and the death of Tyre Nichols. We'll be following the story tonight on NBC Nightly News and on NBC News Daily for those of you on the West Coast. I'm Lester Holt. Thank you for joining us. Good day.
Inflation and